What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about Punisher: One Last Kill, and I really love this special. The full review went up last night. If you want to know my full thoughts and score, then you can click on that. I'll link it down below in the description as well. And honestly, I think this might be one of the darkest things Marvel Studios ever released. I feel like you keep hearing the same old thing despite them putting out Deadpool and Wolverine, despite them having shows like Moon Knight showing stuff like abuse, and despite things like Daredevil Born Again airing where they're dropping F-bombs all the time and they're showing blood and violence and Kingpin murdering people. You still keep having people online for some reason to keep thinking that Marvel is, never going to show anything like this or not going to do anything like that because it's owned by Disney. And I feel like even with this, they'll still be saying that. But I feel like with this airing on Disney Plus, especially us seeing stuff like with the Gnucci family, the war not being over, and I feel like the terrifying answer that the special really gives us is that maybe there is no Frank Castle anymore is kind of just icing on the cake. So let's break it down. So the special opens with Mother by Danzig blasting while Frank walks shirtless through his apartment like a caged animal, and immediately the tone is very perfect. I feel like you've got, seeing that murder wall and seeing it with the pills and the alcohol, the bloody pull-ups. This isn't really the cool Punisher. This isn't the tactical military machine. Even from the Netflix series, I feel like this is more of a broken addict. And the genius thing about this opening is that the special frames Frank almost like a horror movie monster, except he is a protagonist. And I feel like every movement that we see, especially from the fights in this, feels very painful. We get that animalistic scream again at one point in this special. And I think the special constantly starts blurring the lines between PTSD, his hallucinations, memories. For example, like Karen shows up. She's not dead, clearly. But we see a lot of him having guilt and purpose. And you never fully know what's real. They almost tricked me with that Karen scene because I actually thought, I was like, is she there? No, she's not. But so then we end up meeting an unhoused man and his dog Camo, and Marvel do exactly what they're doing here. The second they introduce a sweet little dog in a violent Punisher story, everybody immediately goes, oh no. And exactly what I thought was going to happen. This guy ends up grabbing the dog, throws it in front of a truck, and it gets ran over. They don't fully show it, but they do show the dog get thrown. This scene is more important, I feel like, than just shock value. It's showing us that New York has kind of went to hell. And Frank may have wiped out the Gnucci's, but of course violence never ends. And this really begs the question of, is the MCU Spider-Man the worst Spider-Man we've ever gotten? I love Tom Holland. I love this Spider-Man. But after everything that happened in Born Again and this, I understand legality-wise they can't throw him in here, but it really is making him look bad. Because, like, you've got people getting beat on the streets. Where are you at, buddy? Where are you? Anyways, so then we cut to the graveyard sequence, which I think is some of the best acting that Jon Bernthal has ever done as this character. And I think that's really saying something because I really love his portrayal of this character, even though it's not fully comic accurate. But we see that he's very tired. We see him basically verbally say that, and I feel like those lines hit hard because Frank isn't afraid to die. He wants relief, and I feel like that's kind of the difference. And I love how this special frames his family almost like ghosts pulling away from him, and the memories become warped. His wife can't look at him. The children vanish, and their deaths replay over and over in his mind. And Frank realizes something very horrifying, that if he dies, their memory dies too. And the mission is literally the only thing keeping them alive in his mind. And I feel like that's why he stops, not because he suddenly, finds some kind of hope or something or some purpose, not because he heals, but because he can't let go. And I feel like that's really tragic, adding more to this character. Now, I absolutely loved what they did with Ma Gnucci. She's not physically intimidating, she's emotionally devastating, because for the first time, Frank is forced to confront the fact that every person he kills leaves some kind of damage behind, and Frank usually sees criminals as monsters, but Ma Gnucci reframes the story to her. Frank is the monster. He killed her whole family, erased the whole bloodline, and became the same thing that destroyed his own family. And so I really like that connect there. That was one of the positives I threw out in my review. And a special fully never says that Frank is wrong, but that's what kind of makes it interesting, because even her line, I'm the one doing the punishing now, is very huge because it flips Frank's entire identity back onto him. Suddenly he's the target, he's the hunted one, and he's the trapped one inside a horror movie now. And I think the raid-like sequence that follows, that also felt like the Raid, the Purge, and Netflix Punisher, like all mixed into one, all fused together, was really, really cool following those scenes. And before that, we got a Karen Page cameo, which I talked about briefly. I think that, her saying, to Frank that the family man was a mask, and that I feel like that line completely destroys the fantasy that Frank can never, ever go back. And that's been the ongoing tragedy of his character forever, because Frank tells himself, he fights for his family, but deep down, violence is the only thing that makes him feel more alive anymore. And we see Karen hug him and stuff like that. Clearly it's a vision, but whether she's real or not really doesn't matter here, which is more of why I like that they kind of do toy with that, because when she fully hugs him and he's like, oh wait, you're here, and she's clearly not, I think we see that Frank wants an excuse to become the Punisher again, especially at what's going on. And so now we're going to talk about the action, because good Lord, we get about like a 20-minute action sequence, which is about time, because we spent about 15 minutes of build up in a 40-minute special. And so once again, that goes back to me talking about, I don't understand why Marvel, like people keep saying Marvel's going soft. You have shotgun blasts, throat stabs, broken bones, bodies thrown off balconies, explosions, axe kills, baseball kills, nonstop screaming, and somehow it never feels really glorified. I feel like is important. The special constantly makes violence look ugly and exhausting, and Frank doesn't look cool here. He looks more like he's cursed, like with this, thing he has to do. And you hear the pain, the breathing, exhaustion, even the trauma. And I feel like this isn't typical superhero action, even like a Born Again, where it's like, there's a lot of blood and violence, but nobody's really dying. Now let's talk about the ending, because I've seen a lot of people confused by it. Why he doesn't kill Ma Gnucci. I feel like it was pretty simple. Because two things. If he kills her, the war ends, and Frank cannot clearly survive without war. And I think that's the horrifying realization of the special, that he, Frank Castle needs the Punisher, and the Punisher is an addiction. But what I also like too is that he goes and helps the people, and he leaves to do that. We also see at the end, he finally puts on the vest, which I do. That's a big complaint of mine. Of course, everybody was right that he basically has to earn the Punisher thing again, which I think is weird, but he puts on the vest and helps out the man who got his dog killed, and we see that's why it's called like One Last Kill. I really, really love that, and I feel like, as we know, there's always going to be another target, always another monster. The cycle never really ends, especially when you're dealing with a character like Punisher. And I think what shocked me most about the special is that it barely really feels like a superhero project at all. It's a story about PTSD, addiction, purpose, grief, and identity, and self-destruction. And as much as I do love all those things, I'm hoping that going forward, because this is clearly a soft reboot of the character, and I think that's why they were trying to show all that, just like, hey, if you haven't watched the Netflix stuff, this is what's going on with him. I'm hoping that going forward, if we get a show or a longer special or some kind of movie or something like that, it's probably going to be a show, that's what I'm assuming. I'm hoping that they will do characters like Barracuda, give us different villains. For example, like Ma Gnucci was perfect in this, but give us other things with him. I still give a massive credit to Jon Bernthal, because nobody else could play this role like this, but as much as I love him, I need other writers. I do. I need people that can give us other Punisher stories that aren't just PTSD, my family died, PTSD, my family died. It is really good in Punisher season 1 and 2, particular season 1. It is really good here. But considering it's been forever since we got the Punisher thing, I was just hoping we would get a little bit more. But I still overall really, really enjoyed this special. And comment down below, let me know your thoughts on the special. What do you think? Like I said, check out the full review, which will be linked down below in the description below. And like and subscribe. And also let me know, what do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to do another special? You think it's going to keep showing up in other people's projects? Or do you think they're going to give them a show or something like that? And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one.